My name is Miriam Foote. I'm working with Jonathan on Advocacy, and I wanted to introduce both Joel Rubin and Tim Garvin. If you both would be able to take a second to introduce yourselves, that'd be great, starting with Joel.
Hi, everybody. I'm Joel Rubin, and I am a government relations consultant to NPCA now, but my background is significantly tied to Capitol Hill and work here in Washington. I served in the Senate and as a foreign policy advisor, and I also was the Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Legislative Affairs in the Obama administration, working with the House. Most important to tonight, though, I'm an RPCV from Costa Rica, 1994 to 96.
Great. And Tim, would you also introduce yourself?
Absolutely fabulous to be here. I am so thrilled and proud that you're all joining us. Like Joel said, I too, my wife and I joined the Peace Corps on our 1-year wedding anniversary. We served in Jamaica in 91 and 92. And ever since I've been out, I've been working in the nonprofit sector. For the last 15 years, I've been running a community organization, the United Way of Central Massachusetts. And in my work, I'm usually in Washington about 7 or 8 times a year, advocating on the Hill for some issue that we're fighting for.
Thank you. So to start off, I kind of want to ask you both a question. What are your experiences with advocacy, and kind of give us a little bit of background before we jump into some of the other meatier questions?
Well, I'll tell you, actually, my first ever experience doing advocacy was through the NPCA. I don't think I even mentioned this today in our prep call, but it was in June of 2002. Way back in the day, and it was brilliant. It's what in many ways excited me about moving into congressional work and Capitol Hill and political advocacy for my career. And you all are the most valuable resource that a congressional office knows. You are a voter, you are a constituent, you are what they live for and what they listen to. So you're going in from a position of value to these offices, and you're also bringing value in terms of what you do for us as a community, clearly, and really living the third goal. So advocacy is great. It's a way to really communicate your personal passion and what you want to see happen in our world, and communicate it directly to people who can make decisions on behalf of all of us and how our country does its work with the Peace Corps.
Thanks, Joel. And Tim?
Sure. Joel, that's absolutely fabulous. And I love hearing that you started advocating for National Peace Corps Association. Advocacy is also fun. And the best definition I ever heard of it is giving voice for people that don't have voice. And I think that's really true. And as much as I love going down to Washington every March, except for this year, for the National Peace Corps Association, probably the most fun I ever had, we got legislation in my state of Massachusetts that gave us about 4 acres of land in Boston to us to use to build a recreational facility, and to have land transferred through a legislative process and signed by the governor, and then you hold the deed to the land that you just had, is just absolutely fabulous. And exactly like Joel said, your passion, your stories, your voice, and that you're a constituent, you are the most powerful person that you could possibly be. And I am thrilled that you're all here.
Thank you. So now, as we kind of start building, or we start thinking about talking points and things that we should be bringing up in the meetings, I wanted to ask the both of you, what are some key asks that we should be making this year? How should we be also choosing those key asks when we go into these meetings? How should we frame those? So starting with Joel, could you give us an answer?
Happy to do it, Miriam. And Tim, your passion is coming right through, and I love it. I want to sort of communicate first and foremost, you as advocates, as grassroots advocates, you're not operating in a vacuum. You're not going up there independently on your own without any backup, without any context, without any support. And so what you'll see in the materials that Jonathan is sharing with you are materials that are honed to help you communicate in a way that integrates with the NPCA's ongoing advocacy efforts that Jonathan is leading and that Miriam is a core part of. What that means then is that you're filling in a critical role of making the ask, which is, it's simple in its declaration, an ask, but you're making that ask into a human ask into something that is going to help the staffer and or the member feel something, make a connection with them. That's the real key thing. And we can get into technicals, and I can go over a couple of quick points as well. But what you're doing is you're being yourself, and you're making that connection real, and you're filling in that connect so that when all is done and you're gone and you're back home, and the NPCA is continuing to work with these offices and maintain these relationships, that staffer and or member will have a positive feeling about the Peace Corps because of your exposure to them and you're talking to them. Now the asks, there are a few key asks, and if you want, Miriam, I can sort of go over them point by point if that works for you. It'd be very, very simple, very top line. But these asks are designed by NPCA because they fit into a strategy that NPCA is executing, and so you're putting in the constituent emotional support that these asks need. It brings them to life. The first one, and you'll see on the document that you get, is the money ask, which is the primary objective of these meetings, which is to ensure that Peace Corps budget is robust. And this year, we're asking that you request for at least $450 million for Peace Corps' activities in the coming fiscal year, which is 2022. The second is that you're going to ask them to sign on to a Dear Colleague letter. Now, first of all, the first one, that's a top line request. Technically, then member offices can go to the Appropriations Committee and say to those committee members who manage the money, we want this level of funding for Peace Corps. So that's sort of how they do it internally in Congress. Second is a Dear Colleague letter, which will be one for the House and one for the Senate. And you will ask that member sign on to a Dear Colleague letter, which is essentially a letter drafted by a couple of members and then sent around, Dear Colleague, to the colleagues of those respective chambers so they can all sign on to that as well. And that letter will be circulated in the House and in the Senate as well. And it will essentially say the same thing about robust funding. And so whomever you're meeting with, you want their member to sign on to that letter. And then the third, one for each chamber. There are two separate bills moving right now, one in the House, which is the HR 1456, which simply put is, we can call it the Garamendi bill, the Peace Corps Reauthorization Act of 2021. And in the Senate, there's a bill on healthcare and post-COVID-19. And that is the primary bill right now in the Senate. And what you would do is, as well, you ask these members, these offices, to co-sponsor those bills, which by their nature, they're introduced and then they just sit. And people get, basically bills are alive, but they don't really get blood flowing through the veins until you start seeing members of Congress signing on to them. So you're injecting energy and life into those bills when the members who you're meeting with co-sponsor it or sign on to it. That shows that there's political support. That shows that it is important. And that's what helps it begin to move through the process, hopefully towards a law.
Thanks, Joel. And Tim, what should we be thinking about as we're crafting these key talking points?
Thank you. First of all, it is so great to work with Joel, and I hope all of you have the opportunity, as I do right now, because he is an expert both from the inside and from the outside. Joel, thank you. The only two things I would add. The first is every single member of Congress, every single one, has returned Peace Corps volunteers living in their district. So you are asking them to support what you believe in. And the second, this is the ultimate, the epitome of playing it forward. The reason so many of us were able to serve in the Peace Corps is because other people, 10 years or 20 years, or maybe only 2 years, did exactly what we're doing right now. And we want there to be another 60 years of Peace Corps, and we want to get to 10,000 people every year so that this, in fact, is the best institution of compassion in America.
Thank you. So now we're going to have a little activity where we're going to do a little kind of playing around with Joel and Tim kind of being our PCV representatives, and I am a staffer. This is scary. So So if you guys want to get started, we're going to kind of show you an example of how a meeting could happen, what kind of questions you might be receiving, and kind of the way to concisely as well kind of give a lot of these ideas in a way that staffers or people that you're speaking with will be able to understand it. And so I will be playing staffer.
Actually, we're going to have you play Congresswoman Foot. That's what we want. And
I am a congresswoman.
Joel, Madam Congressman, it's great to see you again. Congratulations on your reelection. I was proud to vote for you in my district, in your district. And as you know, I'm a returned Peace Corps volunteer. My colleague Joel, he and I are here today because we're going to set up a very clear agenda. We want to ask for your support very clearly, and Joel will outline what we're asking for. We want to tell you a little bit about why the Peace Corps is so important. We're going to share a little bit about what we did when we were serving in the Peace Corps and what we do now, and how Peace Corps service shaped and influenced us into the Americans that we are. And then we will answer any questions you might have. So Joel, my good colleague, what are we asking for?
Well, first and foremost, thank you, Tim. And Congresswoman, as you see by Tim's presentation, we're passionate about the Peace Corps. We're passionate because the Peace Corps gave us an experience that not only enabled us to grow and contribute, but also built the positive footprint of the United States around the world. And we have learned from that experience and want to bring that back home to you right now. But want you to understand how important it is for the United States to ensure that we have a strong Peace Corps that helps us, especially after the pandemic, get back out, get the people of America out. We are the American people's face to the world as Peace Corps volunteers. And we believe that you support that vision of being in partnership, and your role in making sure it happens is critical. So we have several key asks to do that. First and foremost, the budget is primary. The budget has to be robust. And this year we're asking for $450 million. In the last 6 years, it's been flat at $410 million. And that's been for roughly 7,300 volunteers in the previous year before all volunteers were withdrawn. That's not enough right now. With additional reforms that are needed, with resending volunteers out to the field, we believe that $450 million needs to be the baseline to get a robust program up and running as soon as possible once the Peace Corps says it's time to serve. Now, to get back out and serve. Now, to do that, we not only think that you need to, and we hope that you sign Dear Colleague letters that will be coming around. There's also a critical bill. John Garamendi and Garrett Graves have co-authored the Peace Corps Reauthorization Act, HR 1456. We really believe that your support for that by co-sponsoring it will help create a political environment that shapes the future of the Peace Corps for the better, that gives energy to it to move through the Congress and really add the kinds of reforms for the Peace Corps that many of our members in the community have been asking for to make a robust Peace Corps going forward. So we thank you and hope that you'll consider doing these, making these requests become a reality.
Thank you very much for meeting with me. I was able to read some of the information you had passed along to me ahead of time. The big question that I have though is why 460 million? And over four years, there'll be an increase in 600 million. Why the big jump, especially now during COVID? Why would this be a priority? This seems like a very big number. So would you be able to talk to me a little bit more about the rationale for the big jump?
We welcome that question. In fact, we don't think that's a big jump. And Congresswoman, seeing what you've supported in the past, this is in fact part of our American response to COVID around the world. Why do we need to go to 450 or 460 this first year? Because we need to restart what we're doing and we need to operationalize so that we can get back to the same place we were 14 months ago when we had to evacuate for the first time in our 60 years all Peace Corps volunteers and bring them back to the United States. And then why do we need to jump by $50 million each year? Which, if one thinks about it, and I just want to put this into context. In 2019, pre-pandemic times, Americans spent $490 million on Halloween costumes for their pets. All we want is that we have that same amount of capital to serve the world with first 7,500, then 8, then 9, and then 10,000 Americans in 131 countries around the world, exactly as Joel said, putting the best face on America and doing person-to-person diplomacy and person-to-person community development. In this last year, I have often thought some people ran away from the pandemic. We, in your district, we, the Peace Corps, we ran towards it. We all, in the United States and around the world, were saying, what can we do to help? And this will allow us to do that. Joel, I don't know if you would like to add in.
Well, Tim, the only thing I'd add, and I completely support everything you're saying. I think it's also important to understand that this is an investment for the United States as well. We have, over the course of the 60 years of Peace Corps' existence, contributed over 3 billion service hours. That is 3 billion hours of volunteer work on behalf of mankind from the investment in the Peace Corps. We are essentially a training ground for next generation of leaders here in our country. And there are about 250,000 Americans who've served in the Peace Corps. It's a constituency that is active in leadership throughout our country. And this is a time to connect and engage. Recently, Secretary of State Blinken stated that it was important for the United States to re-engage the world. That was a core foreign policy priority. Well, we don't do it from Zoom, as we know. We do it out in the field. And that means sending out our best, sending out our volunteers, and having them re-engage the world on behalf of our country.
Thank you. I think I will sign on to this.
Yeah, and you can join too. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I just have one more. We have time for maybe 2 more questions. So Joel, I wanted to ask, as we were setting all of this up, could you kind of debrief us on some key concepts in terms of delivering these talking points? What are things that we need to be considering? How do we set the tone? And how do we really kind of deliver these ideas in a way that is really understandable to people who work on the Hill?
Yeah, thanks, Miriam. So I want to be really simple in this, because I think what you want to make sure you're doing when you go into the meeting is not overthinking it, right? Just be simple, be yourself. Staff on the Hill, they tend to be quick. A lot of these people are very expert on the issues. They won't be patient. A lot of time, it doesn't mean they'll be rude, but that means, the opening 5, 6, 7 minutes of the opening session amongst our advocate, amongst the advocates, that's a lot. That's plenty. And then let them ask questions. Be comfortable with a pause. They'll really want to understand things. So there are 3 frames, real quick. I'll say, and then I'll defer to Tim. First thing is when you open up and you decide who's going to sort of lead the meeting, maybe a little gentle coordinator. Everyone should go around and say who they are, say why they're there, what matter, why they're doing this, but maybe 60 seconds worth at most, at the high end. Show yourself at the high end, but I'd say 60 seconds of who I am, why I'm here, why the Peace Corps matters, why I care so much to be telling you that you need to support it. The second one is there are a lot of talking points that you'll see in this memo. They're great. You don't have to say all of them. You're not required to go to all 10. Find one that you like, that resonates with you. That's it. That's your talking point. I happen to like our national security advanced by the Peace Corps, so that's what I use. Someone else, may find the road to 10,000 more inspiring. One key point. That's it. Get that across, and then you'll be great. And of course, always do have in the back of your mind the ask, because even though one person may request it, you can always, you're all smart people, you can also say, yeah, that's why you need to sign on to that bill. We need it. We need your support. Yeah, that's why you need to sign that, dear colleague, and that money will make a difference. So those are the 3 frames. Show yourself briefly, find just that one key talking point that speaks to you, and then continue to wrap it towards the ask, in the conversation as well. Tim, it's all you. I love this stuff. No, you love this stuff. Tim is great. NBCA is genius at this. The citizen, you are doing the work of the 3rd goal. I got to say it. The 3rd goal, bringing the Peace Corps back home. There's no greater mitzvah. I'm Jewish, so I'll say it, right? There's no greater mitzvah than bringing it back home and inspiring people here at home in our Congress to advance the Peace Corps. That is the living embodiment of the third goal. So I just think, show your passion and they'll love you.
Thank you, Joel. And thank you, Tim. We are at the time. Thank you so much for joining us.